How old were y'all when OJ?
I was in boot camp.
I was in boot camp.
I was 19.
They put that shit on TV.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
dude, that shit was a spectacle. I still think to this day that was the biggest case in American history. I think one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was televised everywhere.
Yeah. Do you think he's innocent?
Bro, and hell no. We all know he. But here's
I
the
was
thing.
looking at Judge Joe Brown, and his
What Judge Joe Brown say, Kevin?
he's innocent from the video I saw.
Fuck no.
Put it up, Judge Joe Brown.
Oh, here
on,
we go. We
O.J.
talking about
Simpson.
OJ today?
No, we just talking.
Well, I'll say this because I covered this case extensively, and I've
Yeah.
like
The
done
blood
so much
evidence
research
is
on this case.
irrefutable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But here's the thing: there was DNA in Nicole Simpson's nails and African American hair fibers that didn't match OJ.
I didn't know that.
So, and I've said this for a bit, he didn't do it alone. And if you guys look at the crime
Biden
scene,
and
the
Kamala
photos are
have failed
fucking
Nevada
terrible. She was
families.
nearly decapitated.
Yeah.
Right.
It was blood everywhere. He didn't do it himself. He had an accomplice. I think it was his son.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
why I hear his son.
Yeah, his son had anger issues. Hated Nicole Simpson, huge. I'm chef. Clearly, he's good with a knife. Former military, I think, if I'm not mistaken, had mental instability problems as well. Known to be violent, and I don't think he was from a prior marriage.
Right.
So
His first wife.
yeah,
And he left his first wife for Nicole.
yes.
So that's probably why he had a lot of resentment for
So he had a lot of issues. So I think if anything, he helped him because the other guy that died, Goldman.
Yeah.
Right. He was a young guy, fit,
Right. Yeah,
had some martial arts
athletic.
training, etc. OJ at this point was old as fuck, man.
Arthritis, too.
Arthritis, all that. So I'm like in my head, there's like you wouldn't have been able to subdue two people like that with that level of carnage by yourself. And then the fact that we had all this DNA that showed that there was someone else at the scene, it tells you. And then also another thing that they shelved this interview back in like 2006. OJ did an interview saying like, if I did it hypothetically, and he went into like a hypothetical.
Yeah, I saw it. He came out with the knife and shit.
Yeah, and he said that like, oh yeah, like I was with my buddy and he told me not to do it, and then I got the knife and then I just blacked out, and then everyone was on the floor dead. But even in his hypothetical, he says that he didn't do it himself.
Yeah.
So everyone knows, like, well, not everyone knows, but like people think that he did it. I think he did it, of course, but he had to help.
Right.
100% had help. I think it was his son.
Right. Did you find that clip? Judge Joe Brown, pull it up. This would.
Well, his number's in my phone. I've known him since 1966. He and I discussed what his strategy was.
Johnny
There is a reality, and his strategy dovetailed into the reality. They did not have a case against him. I listened to every scrap of the trial. I recorded it in my chambers, court chambers. I was a bachelor then. And I would listen to Nancy Grace, who would say, the evidence against OJ was devastating. There's no way he'll escape the consequences for this. So I said, who is this Nancy Grace? And I'd listen to it. I said, wait a minute, what is she talking about? It doesn't get any better than that. The impound lot guy has just testified that he and his buddies went through the Bronco. There wasn't a drop of blood in it. They went through it with a fine-tooth comb. It was locked in a special enclosure that had 4 padlocks. They didn't have the keys to them, only the detectives did. They were instructed to tow the car down to the crime lab 11 days later, and now it's full of blood. Where did the blood come from? All right? The DNA evidence against OJ is devastating. And when I listened to what the expert said, he said, this is not OJ. First off, this is someone similar, but there are approximately 96,000 people in LA County that would match this DNA profile, which, by the way, and this is interesting, reflects someone from Northeast Mediterranean ancestry or perhaps from the island of Sicily. We also get something that didn't pick up in newspapers or television. They had 2 people who were testifying remotely in the Federal Witness Protection Program who dated Nicole's sisters. Their testimony was that it was a message to them to keep silent or their girlfriends, Nicole's sisters, would get exterminated. So where were they from? That hypothetical organization that's got contacts with Sicily. Now, it just happens that I know personally the guy that made the gloves. I know personally, in fact, he was my brother, the person that was the expert knife killing that the prosecution called. Now, let's start with the glove. This person told me out of his own mouth, and so did Johnny Cochran, they took a tracing of everybody's hand. OJ is a big dude. I knew him personally from college. And he wore a size, not XL, but 2XL. The glove was a size L, so they knew it wasn't going to fit. But guess who wore a size L? Furman. Guess who found the glove? Furman. Under a half foot of dead leaves, 75 feet into OJ's dark backyard, supposedly. All right? Now, my brother, who did not testify in front of the jury, when he was asked to assess the knife killing, he said, first off, OJ is a right-handed guy. Whoever did this killing is a left-handed person. Said each of the victims, Nicole and Goldman, were struck by a fatal blow with a knife turned sideways that slid in next to the central cartilage in the rib cage that tore up the aorta and upper two chambers of the heart. Then their throats were slit ear to ear, and somebody used some pliers to pull their tongues out through the slit throat. That's called a Colombian necktie. And meanwhile, in the blood, when they took him out on the scene, since he dealt with this kind of forensics, he says there's somebody that has a size 9 shoe and somebody that wore a size 10.5 shoe that's leaving tracks. OJ wears a size 12. And the blood that they supposedly say they found because somebody got a slight wound on something like a finger, that's the sample that has 96,000 other people in LA County that could have donated it. And it definitely wasn't OJ, but Nancy Grace said it was. Now, the problem was also this, planting evidence. The jury saw this, and Cochran brilliantly used it in final argument, a split screen. There had been so many instances where people were accusing LAPD of coming in and stealing from upscale homes that they had a security squad that would be sent in to video a scene before the crime scene detectives started their work so you could see what was in there. Well, 1:14 on the clock in the video, you can see them video the foot of the bed. There are no bloody socks. There are no socks in there at all. It's well lit. About 5 minutes later, you can hear this, "Sir, who are you?" And you can hear somebody who is identifying himself as Detective Furman, and they tell him he has to leave immediately. The jury saw this. Cochran is arguing from this at final argument. A few minutes later, "Sir, didn't we tell you you had to leave? Detective Furman, isn't it?" "Yes, sir. You got to go out of here right now." And they pan the camera around, and where is Furman? You can see through 2 doors into the bedroom. Furman is standing right there at the foot of the bed. 35 minutes later, when crime scene's in there, right where you saw at 1:14, no socks at all, completely clear, right where you later saw Furman, you see now bloody socks. Now, what's the inference? Furman planted the bloody socks. You find that Furman has testified he found the size X glove that fits him that does not fit OJ, but his story is he finds it under a half foot of leaves deep inside OJ's backyard after he climbs the fence. Furman lives 28 miles away. He's off duty, but for some reason, he comes to the scene 5 minutes after the murder occurs. He also was subject to testimony that he had been over to visit Nicole at least 11 times, and he was trying to talk to her, date her. There was also evidence that the jury here heard that, by the way, Nancy Grace said nothing about, where O.J. caught her giving a head to somebody on the couch, having sex with somebody on the couch, and the witnesses all say he was mad, but in the lines of, don't you know that the kids could come down and catch you? Why don't you deal with somebody who's not so broke they don't have an apartment or a hotel or a motel? If you need it, goddammit, I'll give you the money. Just don't spend it on drugs.
You know,
Kind of wild, right?
yeah. I mean, and here's the thing: that's your job as a defense attorney, right? Is to like kind of just distill the water a bit and you know create a little bit of reasonable doubt, and they were able to do that. But we all know OJ did that shit, man.
Yeah.
Like he had the motive and everything else like that. I just think that he didn't do it by himself.
Yeah,
is the big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised that he's.
He's a straight arrow too.
Yeah.
Every time I listen to him, I find it to be very truthful. I don't.
Yeah.
And
It
Furman-
rings true.
It rings true.
Yeah. No,
And
those
he's-
are some good points that he mentioned. But you know, obviously, yeah, we all know Furman is fucking incompetent idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the first time I heard about Furman potentially having a relationship with Nicole.
That's my first time hearing.
I never heard about that before.
That's my first time hearing that OJ wore a 2X glove and that he wears a size 12 shoe, but the tracks were what, 9?
Well, the
and
other
10?
thing too that people forget is that he wore a glove and his hands were swollen at the time because he has really bad arthritis, like you guys were saying it
Right,
before.
right.
So like, of course, it wasn't gonna fit. But you know, his cockroach was like, "Yes, let him wear the glove." Which actually, I forget who the ADA was at the time that suggested
black
it.
guy, remember
Was a
that?
black guy. He's a dumbass. He literally lost the trial off of doing that.
Right.
I think, and to this day, it still burns him. Like,
Yeah. People love nursery rhymes. What do you say? If it don't fit, you must
have
quit.
Yep.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah,
to
that's
win
all
over
you
a black
remember.
juror.